Greetings and welcome to Obscuria Filmcast, where we discuss cult and obscure films. Today we will be discussing Judy.
Yes. I'm thinking of ending things. It's by Charlie Kaufman. Sorry. Do you want me to go into why?
Yeah,
Yeah,
get
you're not
into
It's
it.
just
just
thinking of
as
ending
weird
things, right?
as my introduction, the
Yeah.
whole film.
So,
So
yeah.
if you've seen it, it's a 2020 Netflix film. It's based off of a book, and it's about a woman who is going on a trip with her boyfriend, her new boyfriend, to go meet his family for the day. And that's pretty much the storyline, but it takes a lot more than that. It's really delving into the mind of the main character, who is not technically the main character of the movie. And it's kind of a surrealist film. I'm not sure where else to go with it without giving any spoilers away.
Is this our first Charlie Kaufman film that we've done?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I did the worst intro, but it makes as
No,
much
no,
sense
no,
as the
no,
film.
No, it's
I
it's
think
an
that-
appropriate intro for a film like this. I don't know how how a film like this would be introduced. We'd have to actually probably write
It's
an
beautifully
essay.
shot. I kept wondering the whole time though about, and this is a little technical detail that like irked me, and I had to pause the movie and go, is there another type? The framing, it looked like it was like old TV standard versus full frame of a widescreen.
You mean the aspect ratio?
The aspect ratio, yes. The
Yeah, it
technical term for
was
that.
right. The aspect ratio was like made for TV or something.
It was
Is
like
that
made
what
for
you're saying?
TV back in like the 1980s, which is actually very appropriate for the movie. But when I first started it,
that.
I
you
didn't
didn't notice it?
that.
I noticed it right away because I was like, why
So
is
they're
there black
scanning
on the
and
side of
panning
Yeah.
like a movie that doesn't fit on your TV screen.
No, it's just
No,
it's
it's
just
shot.
in
It's
TV
shot
format.
in a
There's no panning.
smaller format.
Yeah. But if you notice, go
Yeah.
back and watch it. You don't really note. I guess I don't know why I noticed it, just because I saw the two black on the sides, and I've had it before where I found the movie on, say, YouTube or something, and or it was like on Prime, and it was like a horrible download of it. So I thought, wait a second, let me pause this and see if I'm getting this wrong. And I went and I looked at the trailer, and I thought, no, it's shot this way, but it really makes sense. Because I'm going to go into a total spoiler alert, because I don't know how else to talk about the film except getting
You can't
spoiler
spoil
alert.
this film. You can't
Okay,
spoil
it's
this film.
basically the whole movie takes place. It's this janitor who is suffering from, I think, dementia. They don't say that, but it's alluded to in what I read about it, and I didn't read the book that it's based on. But and the whole movie takes place in his mind, going through scanning his life at the end of his life. And so it makes sense because he keeps going and he's stuck in the past, and it references TV. So at the end of it, I thought, oh my God, that's so appropriate that like he would choose that aspect ratio. Now I'm using the right term, but
Wow.
that he would choose that as a
Yeah.
way to see this movie.
Yeah.
It was just like another little thing of
I
like,
know. Everything.
really,
One thing I
does
can
that.
say is, even though I haven't accounted for a lot of what's going on in this film, I've accounted for like enough to say I kind of think I understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the amount of detail in this film, like, the audience should know that this film is made like with unbelievable detail, and everything means something, and it's
Mhm.
not bullshit. Like, everything has some kind of a significance. It's just it really is kind of like you have to do some detective work to figure it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know, this I kind of, the way I saw it is that we would, like, guys, if you haven't seen this film, definitely see it. And now we're just gonna go. I think we should just go
Let's just go.
interpret it, trying to
I wouldn't
interpret
recommend
what the
seeing
hell's
this as
going
your
on.
First Charlie Kaufman movie. I think you could enjoy this movie more if you know the work of Charlie Kaufman.
Okay, but
yeah.
I don't know.
When you say first
Yeah.
Charlie Kaufman film, do you mean as a director or as a writer? Because
have we done a Charlie Kaufman film on this show?
We have
I
not.
don't think in
We
any
have not.
way.
No,
No,
not
but
in
as
no
a
way
writer,
whatsoever.
I mean as a writer. Like,
Okay.
when
Yeah, because he
you
wrote
watch
the two films that
Adaptations
spiked
specifically.
the two Spike Jones films, Adaptation and Being John Malkovich. He wrote those. And then
Right.
The Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, the director's name of which I can't remember at the moment.
Is a Spanish name, right?
It's something like Latin or Spanish.
Latin.
Let me look it up so I don't
Very
disrespect
famous,
the
and I should know
Wait,
who it
director.
is.
which film? Eternal Sunshine?
Yeah.
or-
Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah, Eternal.
That
yeah.
is Michael Gondry, director.
Gondry.
Yeah.
Gondry.
Not Spanish at all.
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
Michael
the hell it was.
Michael Gondry. Okay,
It's Michael
so
Gondry.
he's a French filmmaker. Okay, I don't
He's
feel
French,
bad.
okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so he did that, and then he did this other film that I think this was his first writer-director, where he wrote and directed is Cynic Doke, New York, or I never know how to pronounce that.
Cinedoche, I think it's called. I think it's Doche.
Everyone said something different. I'm gonna have to have Wikipedia out during this because like there's just too much shit to research. But yeah, so okay, Seth, you were gonna say don't watch this as your first Charlie Kaufman film.
I think that if you know the work, especially if you watch him portray himself and his non-existent twin brother trying to write Adaptation, which is him trying to adapt Orchid Thief, and you realize how much, because he's become Charlie Kaufman, and Charlie Kaufman's great, he gets away with a lot of stuff in this movie that even my mother, who is not a cinemaphile, she enjoys movies and she's learned a lot over the years, and she watches them a lot more with me, but she's like, there's a lot of poetic language and voiceover, and this is rather strange for the first 5 minutes of a film, isn't it, Seth? And I'm like, yes, Mom, but it's a Charlie Kaufman film, and he specifically makes fun of himself in Adaptation about those things.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, So what would you say is like the best entry level into his writing style?
I think people should go Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, and then into this.
Or they could do
Eternal Sunshine.
Eternal Sunshhine's pretty accessible.
Eternal Sunshine maybe first, but they definitely do Adaptation, do Being John Malkovich because it's referred to before Adaptation, because he's trying to adapt Orchid Thief.
So the pronunciation is synecdoche, I believe.
Synecdoche.
No, synecdoche.
Yeah.
No, not
Synecdoche.
I think it's a play. The reason he used that is it's a play on Schenectady, right?
Okay.
Schenectady, New York, which is a real place, and synecdoche is some kind of I think linguistic term. I don't even know what it means, but am I right, Judy?
I don't know.
We don't know.
There is a metonym.
It is a figure of speech in which a term for a part of something is used to refer to the whole, or vice versa. Examples of common English synecdoches include suits for businessmen, wheels for automobile, and boots for soldiers. Okay, got it. But we're not doing synecdoche, New York today. We are doing, again, what is it called?
I'm thinking of ending things.
I'm thinking of ending
which
things.
is like perfect to come out in 2020.
And why is it so hard for me to remember the title? Because I'm really thinking of ending things. Or I think I want to end. It's a strange
and I think
title.
Does the film is that the first line in the film? I know it's one of the first.
I'm pretty
not
sure.
the first. Yeah,
it's
where she walks out, and so so this was the second time I've watched this movie, which is why I had suggested to you guys, and I also suggest to anyone else. I mean, unless you hate the film, don't put yourself through it again. But if you at least were interested or fascinated by it, watch it a second time, because I sort of liked the first time I watched it. I found it really interesting, but I actually was more entertained the second time I watched it because I was able to pick up on more, because I wasn't sitting there going, why are they in the car? And now the janitor's looking through people. Like,
I mean, it's
you were able to pick up a lot
regard.
more. Yeah. And I was able to pick up on, because he uses references, like when she walks into a room and she sees books, there's actual literature that the characters are speaking in the movie. You know, they use the title Zemeckis in a movie that's made up in his mind, you know, in the film. Like, there's all these little things. And like in the first scene, when she looks at the car and she says, I'm thinking of ending things, and she looks up at the window, it's the janitor, but then it cuts to the back of the guy. So there's subtleties in it that I only noticed the second time I watched it. I wasn't paying attention enough to notice the little nuances.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
so
the first time.
The thing about that for me was I knew I wasn't gonna have time to watch this twice. So I'm pretty good at like pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And so what you just get a lot of moments in this film where you're like, oh, that's means something that's going to be connected to something else. And then you see, so I did a lot of stopping and rewinding. And when I saw something that I thought I saw, but I wanted to make sure I saw it, and to confirm that it was what I thought I saw. And I do that a lot. And so I think I got a better picture of what was going on in this film than maybe if I had been more, just watched it straight through.
Yeah.
But it just got so weird so quickly that I was like, in order for me to be prepared for this show, I'm going to have to like maybe pause and rewind a couple times. But that being said, I think we should dive into just interpretation of like, what is this movie about? And Seth, why don't you
time, memory, who you are based on what you remember about your life.
What about but what about plot? I'm sorry to
plot?
Like what's this movie about? Like what happens? What is this movie? Like what's the story?
My mother is full of these wonderful statements like, I think it's unusual for someone to have them meet their parents when they're in a relationship or like it's a young relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It would be too early for a normal relationship unless something came up where you just had to bring your significant other who you were thinking of ending it with to go meet your parents on a
wait, Seth, did you interpret I'm thinking of ending things as I'm thinking of committing suicide?
When I first read the title, and it for a long time, I thought I'm thinking of ending
but
things.
At a certain point, you realized it was
right into the beginning. I was like, "Oh, it's about the relationship." But when I heard the title, I kept going back to.
Yeah, of course, that was my initial reaction.
And I think there is a dual meaning in there, just like
there is.
Yeah,
at least I think.
What's his name? Yeah. The guy in Austria who was a Nazi hunter. His autobiography is
okay.
So
go ahead.
I Will Never Forget You is the name of his autobiography.
Right.
And it's about his family, but it's I will never forget you bastards and hunt you down to the so it's a double meaning, and I think this is a double meaning.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, what do you think that meaning is, Judy or Seth?
Which one? I'm thinking of ending.
What's the significant? Like what? Okay, I'm thinking of ending things. Like, do you think do you think the double meaning is that like this character first of all, do you agree that like these characters are a fantasy of the janitor? The guy is how the janitor is fantasizing about himself in some capacity, and the girl is a projection.
Yes,
not a real.
It's another aspect of himself,
or another aspect of himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's his desire to find a woman who's like gets him completely and is kind of just like him, and like he wants to find a perfect mirror image of himself in the female form.
Well, I think I think it was more his and it sort of made me sad the second time that I watched it, that I didn't have the impact of the first time I watched it, was his life, his dreams that were lost. The woman that he was interested in, that he never approached, but he just creepily stared at her. Because she gives that monologue about it. So then that's when he sees her in person, which is not really in person, but in his mind, the truth comes out finally of like, you were just kept staring at me, So it's like the woman that he never got to introduce anyone to his parents, the paintings that he never got to display, the physicist that he maybe could have done, but he never went through it. He just kind of never left high school and became the janitor. So I think it's like all these like things that he had thought, the performing in Oklahoma, maybe he wanted to sing and he always saw the kids do it and he never had the courage to do it. So it's sort of like made me think of the whole time thing of like, if you never pursue anything, it might haunt you.
Absolutely.
And it's haunting him and he's losing his mind. So it's sad in a way because I forget, I might have read it somewhere that he's suffering from dementia. I know that the end he's talking to a pig, but
the dementia part actually clears one thing up for me, possibly, that I couldn't quite figure out. What was the significance of the fact that his hallucinations or dreams or whatever you want to call them or I would almost call them daydreams, almost like day fantasies.
Yeah.
It seems like that those like instances where they're actually visiting the parents, and the parents are different ages and different instances and in different conditions. The dementia thing would sort of explain why his memory is sometimes like anachronistic, where he sees himself as much younger and the parents as much older than they could be, because they didn't have that kind of age difference. And like the different scenarios the fact that the scenarios are so strange, and that he can't remember, it's almost like as if he can't remember what his relationships were like, or were they really like this, or were they really like that? In some instances, they seem more competent, the parents. Some, they seemed really stupid. And then in
Yeah.
some of the scenes, they were really old, and they were having dementia themselves, right?
I think it's a fuzzy memory. She
Yeah.
also, her character's name changes, and she keeps getting text messages.
All the
from the name.
characters, a lot of the characters' names change. You're talking about the girl or the mother?
The girlfriend.
The girlfriend. Yeah,
I didn't notice. I didn't pay attention to the mother if her name changed at all.
I think it did, but I'm not sure. But the girlfriend's name changes at least
3
5
times.
times.
And,
yes.
And she's referred to, if you have the subtitles on, as young woman through the entire.
Not in the ones, not in the subtitles I was looking.
Oh, really? The subtitles I was using on Netflix.
In the subtitles, it didn't show it wasn't giving you the name of the characters that was speaking.
Okay, maybe I had the hearing impaired subtitles on for my mom, so maybe that was what I.
Yeah, could
probably.
be.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
So that's my interpretation of it. Is it's lost in time, and it's also, they say, when you study behavior and memory, memory is the least reliable, because it changes, and it also changes the more you think about it. The more people think and obsess about their stories and they replay them in their own minds, details change. And so I think it's like he's trying to figure it out.
But so I think to that point, there's another message here, which is that, like, it seems bleak. Like, can you believe that this guy is having these kinds of distorted memories of things? But I think it's kind of taking a jab at the audience who thinks that, like, they have like that their memory is
2020
like well constructed, like that it's some kind of a picture of what actually happened, and that's not how memory works, and that, like, a lot of your memories are just as delusional and mixed up and literally factually wrong. Like, you get specific details wrong, like you'll think you were 5 years older when the thing happened, or you'll mix memories up, and and that happens to people that don't have quote unquote dementia. And so I think it's sort of like a message to not to, like, on the one hand, to dive into life and live and not obsess over, like, the past or whatever your perceived limitations are, but also to, like, caution you against getting really, just in generally speaking, caught up in like the truth of your memories. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's just memory. It could be different, and I've had that too. Like, there's a term for it when they say there's a group distorted memory. Like, everyone agrees on a memory, but, like, it didn't actually happen. There's
That
a name
happens a
for
lot.
it.
That happens all the time.
There's a couple of episodes of shows that never occurred, or they absolutely know that they never showed something that was only referred to in one. But one of the most famous one is Dick Cavett had a guest die on his show. He was a health food aficionado, and the last thing he said was, "This asparagus, it's been what do you call it? Marinating in urine. It's very healthy." And then he sort of started to nap off kind of noisily, and then everything got quiet, and he died. They never aired that show. Dick Cavett's like, they never aired that show. Absolutely. It was never seen by anyone except for Dick Cavett and his production staff. People to this day come up to Dick Cavett from this show that was like late 60s, early 70s, and go, "I can't believe that night I saw the show where the guy died." And he's like, "Were you on my staff?" And they're like, "No." And he's like, "Oh," and now he got to go. But people remember this. And a guy in Denmark told me that there's a famous show. It's like the equivalent of their All in the Family. And this woman goes on a date with the only old man in the town. And one of them gets locked out on the balcony in the winter and freezes and dies out there. Well, they never showed it. They only referred to, oh my God, did you hear at the end of the episode? But people in Denmark refer to how crazy this episode is, where you see this old person freeze to death in this comedy on the balcony window. And it never happened.
Yeah.
It just never happened. But everyone seems to remember these episodes of shows that just never happened.
It should be very humbling.
More fascinating, I think, than implanted memory, which has also been proven.
Oh yeah, that can happen too.
Which they can do with a bunch of photographs. They doctor a photograph. Like if you've never been in a hot air balloon, I can go, oh Judy, give me some photographs from your life, and you'll be like, oh well, here's the one where, we did the thing, and I was Uganda, and you were that guy in drag, and then here's where we met and the time we went out for sushi, and here's this at your birthday party, and this is, and then I go, oh, and I also have this one with the hot air balloon at the time we went on a hot air balloon, and you just put it, and you just keep adding cards and going through them, and in a very short amount of time, and therapists realized they were doing this to people who were testifying against their parents for like sexual and physical abuse that never happened. They were implanting, like, let's go over this memory that you brought up last week.
Yeah, that happened a lot with the whole satanic child
panic. The whole satanic panic.
Yeah. Wow.
With Dungeons and Dragons, no one was worshiping the devil. But people actually said that they saw demons come out of Dungeons and Dragons books. Like,
but I think what that goes to, because I've read, about that too, is that they say it's more about the feeling. So if you look at it from a character perspective, right? So the character experienced a feeling, and then he created almost the memory around it.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what we can do. So like I've read about when, someone says, oh, I did a hypnosis and I remember my dad raped me. And another doctor might say, well, something probably happened that made you feel violated. Right. Now, I'm not going to say someone said that happened and it didn't. I don't know. But they're saying that it could just be there's an intense feeling and then the mind comes in and can create this whole thing, which I think kind of is what's happening in the movie. Right. Like, I don't know if any of that happened. Right. And then I also love how shame is hidden in the basement, and he was shamed about being a janitor, but he also hid his art because his art was in the basement. Yeah. Right. And there's like claw marks. It's just really interesting. I almost like want to watch some of it again because she's like, there's like tape on the door and there's like scratch marks. And he's like, don't go in the basement. She's like, oh, I want to see. And they make a fun moment out of it. I love that there's these little moments of humor in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's great. It feels like at any moment something really terrifying is going to happen and it never does. And that's why I like it. Cause it's like a thriller that doesn't make you panic and, or make you anxious or whatever. Yeah. And, there's one like really, I think nice, touch where there's the movie that he's watching the ending of and ostensibly in real life. As the old janitor, he's watching the ending of this love story with two different actors who somehow kind of have some parallel to the two main characters, the younger guy and his girlfriend. And there's one moment where the actual actor playing his girlfriend switches to the one from the movie. Did you catch that?
Yeah. It's quick.
It's very quick, and it's just a nice touch because it is kind of like, even just from a straight memory or dream standpoint, I've experienced that in dreams where I'm talking to one person and then they end up being like, it's a person in my real life. And then they end up being like an actor that I've never met. And then like, that's actually a pretty, like that kind of stuff where people morph into different people in a dream. It happens all the time. And I think visually that scene captured that so well with the lighting and everything, where it still kind of looks like the original person, but then it maybe like you, for a split second, you second guess yourself, and then it registers. Those, that kind of subtlety, like when you're a kid, did you ever have this when you're a kid and you like mistake somebody for your parent and you start like calling their name?
I grabbed a man's leg once in the airport.
Or you jump on.
I was like 3 or 4, and I still like feel embarrassed.
Of course,
So
I jumped on a
like
man's. Yeah, I jumped on a man's shoulders when I was in Disney World because I thought it was my dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like, it's just it's kind of like that. I mean, our vision, everything. We talk about memory, but it's not just memory. Our actual like vision is a like, it's a very crude type of thing. We make out these composite shapes and things like.
Well, they talk about this in the movie about color at one point.
Yeah, that's right.
That we're filling in the color.
Oh yeah, they say color isn't real.
Yeah,
which is so funny because we work so hard to make better versions of how to see. Like, I sent you that thing that, what was it, like 8 point something, these new animal videos.
Oh, like 8K?
8K. Like, we work so hard to like make better versions of what we can capture with the camera, but behind all of it is this knowledge that it doesn't even look like that.
Yeah.
I do also want to give a shout out to the actors.
Oh yeah.
Because even in that moment in the car, so in that particular scene in the car, she I forget what the actress's name is. She does a really great job. She's going through a variety. Yeah, she is almost going through a variety of dialects or oh my God, sorry.
You're talking about Toni Collette?
No, the other girl. It's okay. My daughter just came in the room. Sorry, it just scared me. I was like, I thought I heard something. You can sit down, honey. Sorry.
You're talking about the Irish girl? I think she's Irish. Jessie.
Yes, Jessie Clemens or Plemons.
No, that's the guy's name. They're both
that's the guy's name.
So Jessie.
Oh,
Buckley.
Is it really?
Yeah, Jessie Buckley is the Irish actress. Yeah, she's amazing.
Okay. She's so good. And so in that scene, in the final car ride, like as they're going up to the school, and she starts talking, and you could almost see, like, if you were just watching the movie and you hadn't seen the rest of the movie and you just watched that scene, you would almost watch it as like, is this woman okay? Is she having some sort of psychotic break? Because she's sort of like changing her dialect and the way that she's phrasing and the things that she's talking about and how she's looking and how she's sitting. And in that moment, when the other actress comes in, she takes over. So it's like she matches how she was moving. So it's almost, I don't think I noticed it the first time I watched the movie because it's so quick that if you just sort of like look away to grab something, you might not even notice that the actress changed.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's amazing. I mean, everything she did was so virtuosic. It was like almost schizophrenic, right?
Yes.
Like what you're talking about. I mean, she and I'm sure she got like the chemistry with the directors and the director Kaufman and the actors must be really good to get these kind of, like, I just couldn't. I was watching the whole thing. I just couldn't understand how he was able to get such precise performances out of people, and how the actors were able to give such precise performances. What do you, as two people who have a lot more experience than I do being directed as actors, hey, can you tell me a little bit about your thoughts?
I have no F-word idea how he got these. That I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming they must have marked up their scripts an awful lot for what they did for each take.
But isn't this like, can you even compare this to anything you've ever seen before, Seth?
I can only compare it maybe to Michelle Yeoh's performance in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Okay. I still haven't seen it.
I mean, she has on her script, she has about 50 different colored tabs of who her character is now and which time frame they're related in because of how that movie worked.
Right.
But I had the same feeling watching this. I was like, I don't know how they know what they're in. And this is also, working with the editor.
Mhm.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but they...
And maybe lots and lots of takes and lots of
takes,
basically
or just getting the take, knowing the take that you got is there, and then only getting a few more, or
yeah.
I don't know how
it's almost musical in a way. And I was in a recording session
Mhm.
today, and when you modern recording, a lot of the instrumental and especially vocal stuff gets comped like crazy. Comping means that you have dozens of takes and you chop up, you use different pieces. You do the take straight through, and then you take pieces within each take and chop them up. I don't know what the technical term for that is in film editing, but I know that it's done in film editing to various different levels. But if you take like an example of a pop singer like Billie Eilish, supposedly she does like something like for just one vocal line through a song, she'll do almost something like 200 or 300 different cuts, like syllables and everything, and and just matching different ones with different ones from different takes and stuff. So like it seems like I want to say that maybe the editor is like this process was like excruciatingly detailed editing. I mean, so I gotta assume that and give a shout out to the editor, because that's like, I guess, whatever. But between the editing, the directing, and the acting, I don't understand how they made this happen. Like, I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Yeah, I think I read, I forget where I was reading. I was like reading stuff as I was watching it for the second time, but I think they talked about how the actors didn't even fully understand it themselves. So it was just really them trusting the director.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine that they could understand.
Yeah, and just
it was probably like a series of
them.
acting, like really weird acting exercises.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I imagine it to be.
Which is sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I remember reading that
they seemed like they looked like they were having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
I mean, I was on an audition once for God, now I can't remember the name of the director. It was the film that I did, Fair Game. I had a scene with Sean Penn. I was a reporter. And that audition, the callback for that was probably one of my most fun callbacks because I remember leaving the room and going, wow, I feel like I actually worked with like a good director. Right. Because, literally, guys, because I had done mostly like student films or like low budget stuff. And it was like, here's this guy, like a big budget film, and it was so much fun. But I trusted him, for one. And all he did was he was like, do it this way, do it. And like his directions were so specific. He was like, okay, now you got to stop him from getting there, or like, and he just went through a whole series of things, and it just became so much fun. But there's almost this energy that's created between the actor and the director when there's that trust there, that they just throw something out there and you're like, yeah, let's do it. And you just have this like freedom. So I feel like that could have happened on the set. I could be
I don't know. Yeah, my other thought would be that maybe, you know the story about Willem Dafoe in American Psycho?
No.
They would do one take. American Psycho. Yeah, he's the detective who's hunting.
Oh, okay.
That's
yeah.
right.
So the director was like, we would do one or a series of takes where Willem knew Christian Bale is absolutely guilty.
Yeah.
He's the guy. And there's no hiding it. Like, I know. Then he'd do another one. It's like, I'm just testing the waters. I don't really know what's going on this case. And then he would do one where he's like, you don't have to worry about anything because I know it's not you.
Mm.
And those were the 3 takes that she absolutely needed to have in the bag of every shot.
Yeah.
Right.
And then she edited it accordingly.
Mm.
So like when you're watching, that's kind of like what she knew she needed is 3 energies to cut back to from Bale to Dafoe.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's actually doing 3 performances, but they're cut together in the final performance that you see. It
Mm.
really determines, the editor is tailoring your performance. I mean, it just goes to show you how, when people are like, oh, there's no difference between film and theater. It's like,
Oh God, no.
there
I mean, it's
definitely is one.
Oh wait, hold on.
It's like
Sorry.
saying there's no difference between, I don't know,
A studio musician and a guy who can make an audience like have an orgasm live.
No, just in terms of, I just mean in terms of the technical magnitude of the project.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a crew with like 1,000 people in it to make a play.
No.
It's just, there's
No.
too many, movies have so many more moving parts. It's like saying that, like, I don't know. I can't think of a
No,
good
but I
comparison.
understand, like, when you need to calm an actor down, you can say, like, just be in the moment. And if you make a mistake, it's the take. And if you make a mistake, then recover and you can fix it the next night. You can say
the
things like
stakes
that
are a lot
as
higher.
nice cover-all statements. But to say that, they're that's like saying that opera and metal have a lot of similarities.
No,
Well, they do,
it's
but
also that, like, even just from the technical standpoint, like, you can do a movie in a lot of different ways. You can run it a lot of different ways. You can have tons of, I mean, you can have it where it's almost like a play, where it's very few cuts and the actors can't forget their lines or the take is fucked. But, you can have it where, like, the actors, like, learning their lines a minute before. You can't do that in a play. Like, you can't like stage a play where you can do cuts and edits and stuff. Like, it's just not, it's not the same thing.
They did when they got to the high school scene, when the dancers came in, the two actors came behind the two dancers came behind the two actors.
And then the actors disappeared.
And then the actors disappeared, but then they came back. But I don't know how many edits there were in that. I wasn't looking, but it was one of those things where you watch it and you're like, oh, they had to really plan this out.
The whole thing is
whole
choreographed. The camera guy, the cinematographer, the camera technicians are part of the choreography.
Yeah.
Like, they have to rehearse, like, those kinds of movements.
The lighting, all
Yeah.
of it.
Lighting. I mean,
that's another thing that's different about film
holy
and
shit.
theater.
How
When
much
they
did
say
this
they want to
movie
rehearse
cost?
something in the theater, you're going to be there all day, and it's you. When they say
Yeah.
they want to rehearse something in film, that's for the crew, and the actors, like, don't really like. They're just like, it's really so that guy with the Steadicam can move around you.
Right.
He wants to know what you're doing.
In fact, I was
going
the
to do a
stand-in many
rehearsal.
times.
Completely
So,
different.
yeah.
In fact, sometimes the rehearsal is with a stand-in.
Yeah.
Which is always weird if you're the stand-in, because you're like, well, what is he gonna do? Like, I want to do it right for crew,
Well,
Right.
the
They don't tell
stand-ins.
you. The guy who went off to go to craft, he doesn't
Well,
tell
no,
you.
they're supposed to. For people that don't know, or haven't been on a film set, usually they find actors who look like the people who are going to be in the scene, and then they rehearse it with the real actors who are going to be in it. And then when they need to spend an hour or two setting up the lights and practicing the camera movement, that's when the actors go get ready.
Judy's
And
done
then the
real stand-in
stand-ins,
work.
because I've done real stand. Yes,
I've done
real stand-in work.
Judy's done. She's been stand-ins for a formerly big name.
Yes, I was, and
with a big attitude attached to it.
Yes, she wasn't mean to me, but she just wasn't very nice to me.
No, but she has a
kind of
reputation.
pretended I didn't exist.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the stand-ins are actually part of the crew to practice it. So it is this whole, like, there's a lot that goes on. I don't know. I miss being on film sets. It's just that.
Well, you were on a fun one.
I feel like I was on a lot of fun film sets.
Well, the ones you did stand-in one, specifically that one, was fun.
Oh yeah, I had so much fun on it.
Yeah.
I never minded doing those. When you're working with a good crew, like, I didn't care. I've been the intern before, but when you have a good crew and just a good people to work with, I mean, that's really where that's like the love of it. And I love when you can see that in movies. Like, everybody plays a part, even down to craft services, because a well-fed crew is a happy crew.
Yeah,
very happy crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Be nice to everybody.
It's true, because sometimes fellow actors, if you're watching this, the director and the producers might ask craft services and the interns how you've been treating them.
Yeah.
Yeah, be nice to everybody, not just the people in power, because the interns are the future directors.
And they're the future casting directors. I always told
Yeah.
the person who was nice enough to spend the day saying you're on deck and signing people in, I was like, if this person gives you any attitude, or if they like give attitude with people about how they have a show to go to or a job, just watch how they negotiate stuff. If they need to go ahead on the line, out in the hall, I want to know everything.
Right.
I want to know, because that's really when you find out who you're dealing with. Is in
yeah.
moments like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the moments
What is
where
it
they
they
come
say?
in the room and like want the job.
Yeah, power
But the
doesn't make a
moments where they're
man, it
treating your,
reveals
like,
him.
assistant to the assistant casting director.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need this.
Yeah.
But then sometimes, you know, you're a young director and you need them no matter what. So they just bring whatever it is. And you hear those
Yeah.
stories too.
Yeah. So I don't really have much more to say about the film other than, you know, I recommend it. I don't know if it's like a date night movie. Maybe
Depends
it's
on what kind of a
fun.
couple you are.
Kind of date,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean,
it's definitely a movie you have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
movie you can just put on in the background and, you know, enjoy and have a good laugh. Maybe if you're high, I don't know what that experience would be
I
like.
don't think I would want to watch this high.
Not too high. No.
I wish Dan was here. I would have loved to have heard his viewpoint on it.
Well,
I'm glad
we'll
Sean
have
isn't
him,
here because I know that he wouldn't have liked it.
Who? Sean?
Sean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think would have liked
You
this one
never
at
know.
all.
Maybe he would have really liked it. Usually he always hated my picks, though.
I think that he would have really hated this because it breaks so many rules that Kaufman can get away with breaking.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this goes into, like, if you had to pick all the movies that I've picked, right? I've had several cannibal films, right? I don't know why.
Yeah.
There's some more, but I was like, I don't think I could pick another cannibal film. And then this one is my second film now that I've chosen, where it's through the distorted perception of the person's mind.
That's what Sean doesn't like. He doesn't like unreliable narrator. He hates an unreliable narrator. So he would have hated this film.
It's very
but
unsettling.
I think Kaufman understands the rules, so he can break them.
Yeah. No, he can.
Yeah.
He has, what's his name? The guy who wrote screenwriting, McNeil.
Mm-hmm.
That's McNeil, right?
Robert
McKee, who teaches screenwriting, but he himself has never written a screenplay that ever went anywhere.
Right.
But he teaches, like, the Charlie Kaufman or his twin, who doesn't exist, but does exist in Adaptation, goes and gets yelled at by him. And McKee said, if I can be played by anyone, I want to be played by Brian Cox. Only Brian Cox.
Yeah.
And so Brian Cox is playing him, and that it brilliantly. But I mean, he says don't use opening narration, which this movie does too.
What do you mean by what does that mean? Opening narration? What does that mean?
Like in Taxi Driver, like where it's voiceover.
Oh yeah, okay. So literal voiceover introduction.
Yeah. Which is frowned upon.
It's frowned upon.
Screenwriting. It's considered lazy storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you didn't write it in and you're just like going back and being like, oh, I have to fill in the gaps to make it make sense.
Yeah. So he's like in Adaptations, he's like, and God help you if you use opening voiceover. And of course, in Adaptation, he uses opening voiceover. And in this one, he uses opening voiceover.
Yeah.
And but then also, like in the reason I say definitely see Adaptation is he doesn't have a twin brother in real life, but in Adaptation he does, so that they can mention that Casablanca was written by twins.
Right.
And he's like, your screenplay is going to be great because it's just like Casablanca. It's being written by twins. But in real life, he doesn't have a twin. Just like in real life, this guy is longing for something he never had.
I think like it's funny you just mentioned that scene in Adaptation that deals with Casablanca, and I had just gone back and watched that again recently. We were talking about it the other day, Seth, and it's like Michael Curtiz is one of these really like I don't know, probably one of the biggest powerhouses in filmmaking one of the greatest directors of all time, and like nobody knows his name. He's the director of Casablanca, and I think that I don't know if I was just under the influence of having just watched Casablanca or whatever, but it seemed like a lot of he was taking some of the stylistic, like a lot of the moving camera and moving cast, and just the way that he was doing this really dynamic filmmaking in some of those scenes reminded me a bit of that. So I wonder if Michael Curtiz or Casablanca in particular did have a powerful impact on him as a filmmaker and a writer.
Well, it must have, because otherwise why would he have it be mentioned in Adaptation? And why would he give himself a twin brother like the writers of Casablanca?
Because I guess you might be able to interpret it that he's being like sardonic, and that he's like, obviously everything about everything about the film Casablanca and the directorial style of Michael Curtiz hits every single note, and it's like, I always call it the greatest, most wonderfully benevolent propaganda film ever made. Yeah. And it's so absolutely persuasive. And if you were to take a class in screenwriting, like, it's obvious that would be the type of film, or that would be the film that you would pick to teach somebody how to make the perfect film that is great and that it's good on every level and it hits all the notes and everyone loves it and they're still going to watch it 100 years from now. You want to make that kind of film, these are the rules.
On set.
Right. You're talking about the actual
process
backstory of Casablanca.
The backstory
right?
of Casablanca is
yeah.
It's being written.
For sure. But that doesn't make it any less well
conceived. No.
But
in fact, that's what makes it magical, because when Elsa says, now we're talking about Casablanca, but Elsa says, I have a story, and he says, what's the ending? And she goes, it doesn't have an ending yet. They're actually just writing that in the moment.
Yes, right.
So it's going in there.
It's pretty profound on a lot of levels. But like, going back to the whole idea of it being depicted in like a writing class, and then you have a director like Kaufman, who breaks all the rules in all of his films. It almost seems like he's kind of making fun of that whole notion.
Yeah,
as guys, well. I'm gonna have to go. I have a child.
Gotta go.
To bed.
Okay. Well, I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a maggot thing in here that we didn't get to talk about, but that was.
If you guys want to cover the pig,
we'll cover
because
the pig.
I did have a few questions. I had a question about the pig scene at the end, and I also had a question that I wasn't fully certain about the woman in the ice cream shop and the stuff on her hands, and when she talks about the smell, and she says it's not. I forget what she says.
Varnish. It's not varnish.
Not varnish. So it's like, there was a few things I was like, I might have to look into that more. I'm not exactly sure what that meant.
I'm with you on that. Those were some of the lingering questions I had.
Yeah.
As well. I have some.
So maybe our viewers can fill us in if they've made it this far.
Maybe.
Yeah, I guess we'll end there, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
This has been a really strange one, and we will see you soon.